will continue to say murdered, because where in this planet do you tell the truth and you be honest and you still be murdered by the police of Minnesota while you have your seatbelt on and you're in a company with a woman and a child? My son would never jeopardize anyone else's life by trying to pull a gun on an officer and the gun was not fire ready. These are some of the facts that came out in the trial, and I am so very, 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 very disappointed in the system here in the state of Minnesota, because nowhere in the world do you die from being honest and telling the truth. The system continues to fail black people, and they will continue to fail you all. Like I said, because this happened with Philander, when they get done with us, they're coming from you, for you, for you, and all your interracial children. Y'all are next, and you'll be standing up here fighting for justice just as well as I am. I am so disappointed in the state of Minnesota. My son loved this state. He had one tattoo on his body, and it was of the Twin Cities, the state of Minnesota with TC on it. My son loved this city, and this city killed my son, and the murderer gets away. People have died for us to have these rights, and now we're devolving. We're going back down to 1969. Damn! What is it gonna take? I'm mad as hell right now. Yes, I am. My firstborn one son died here in Minnesota.
So there's a man that I saw on Facebook, and he stated that he was a former racist, and he had made a video stating why some, not all, white people have a great fear
to be
of black
adding
people.
Markel
Let me roll the clip.
to this.
Well, it's me. I'm back again. I'm here to talk about fear, pride, arrogance, narcissism, all that good stuff. So what is it that stops so many white people from wanting to change their hearts in regards to race and wanting to see the reality and come out of denial? What is it that keeps us stuck right there in that comfortable position of untruth? Well, I think part of it is fear. Another part of it is greed. Greed in that we don't want to lose dominance. We don't want to lose power. We don't want to lose privileges. We don't want to lose benefits that the system of white supremacy has created here in America for white people. We don't want to lose none of it. We're scared. We're scared of black retribution. We're scared of black vengeance. We're scared shitless, and we always have been. Since day one, we put our hands on black people. Grabbed them, snatched them up, put them on a boat, and made them our own fucking personal slaves and assistants for no pay. We did all that. You goddamn right, we're scared. We're scared of losing what we got. We're scared of losing our positions. And we're scared of retribution. So we got a lot of fucking fear, man. Yeah, we do. You hear me, white brothers and sisters? A lot of fucking fear. We're scared. We always have been. You see a black man walking down the street, you lock your doors, you check making sure he ain't gonna hurt you, you clutch your purse. We're scared. So what we do? Lock them up, throw them in jail. World's largest prison population of black folks right now. It's right here in this fucking country. Wonder why? We're fucking scared. Even the fucking police officers, the coward police officers that kill unarmed black people are scared. Scared of that retribution, scared of that black vengeance. And then we project, then we pretend and project that black people are as racist as white people. Who the fuck ever taught a black person black supremacy? The first thing a fucking black person learns is why it's wrong to be a supremacist. They deal with that shit their whole fucking life. Why the fuck would they want them to act supreme? I ain't never heard a black person go around acting superior because of the color of their skin. If anything, they do the opposite. It's white people that are taught. I ain't saying black people can't hate. I ain't saying black people can't be angry. But hell, if they do hate, it's a hate that hate produced. It's a anger that anger produced from white supremacy, a culture, and a system of white supremacy. So yeah, black people are angry. Some of them, not all of them, some of them. The point is, face your fear, face your greed, so that we can fucking have a more peaceful country, a more peaceful world. Until white people face that greed that they have. Oh, I gotta be on top. I gotta keep my white privilege. Oh God, I'm scared that the black people gonna kill me. They gonna come get me. They gonna snatch me up the way we did them. They gonna do all that dirty shit to me that white people have done to them. Stop being so fucking scared, man. Man up, woman up. Let's face reality. White supremacy is real. Our country is a country of white fucking supremacy. Yes, sir, it is. It always has been. Let's face it.
So let's face it. Hi, my friends, joining me this evening. So let me just start off by saying I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in a rather large segment of what's known popularly as the progressive movement, though I'm not really sure what that means anymore. What is the progressive movement in 2017? Is it a collection of disgruntled Bernie Sanders supporters that don't really know what to do now that the election's over? Is it a group of rather privileged live streamers that have no real journalistic background, but they like to think of themselves as reporters and the real honest purveyors of real news because, we should just, lambast anything else as sellout mainstream media news. I think in regards to that, I think we need to utilize some good old-fashioned critical thinking skills and to question everything. But what I let in with there was first Philando Castile's mother, a heart-wrenching statement she made after the verdict came in acquitting the police officer for killing her son in a car in St. Anthony, Minnesota, in front of his girlfriend and his girlfriend's child. And then a former white supremacist, neo-Nazi type guy who is no longer in that lifestyle, sharing his thoughts on white supremacy and the pervasiveness of racism in our society. So, like I said, some things have come up recently in the so-called progressive movement, whatever we call it nowadays. Collection of folks that like to call themselves progressive, that's basically it. Disrespecting a safe space for black organizers at a national anti-war conference about a week ago, a little less than a week ago, really, in Richmond, Virginia. It's a 3-day conference, and there was one 90-minute session out of over 70 hours of sessions and plenaries. And so there's one 90-minute session that was in the pamphlet. The program basically was in a pamphlet form for the National Anti-War Conference that said it was a black-only safe space. And the organizers of the safe space did welcome in non-black folk, white folk, into the safe space. And there was one live streamer, a white woman, who asked if she could live stream, basically broadcast live this safe space. And so the point of this safe space was really organizing, like anti-war, anti-imperialist organizing amongst black organizers, and to form, their own community of organizing through their shared experience, obviously, as being black Americans. And she was told no, that they didn't feel safe as her, as a white woman, live streaming their organizing, their communication amongst themselves. And that was not respected. Well, it was respected, I guess, at the moment. But as soon as she left, there was she vented about it, and it was clear it was about her, really, about the white woman who wanted a live stream. She's kind of a personality within the progressive movement. I'm going to try not to say her name here. People can probably say it down there in the comments. But she just didn't like saying no, being told no to her. So it was I see it as kind of a narcissistic thing, a very much an entitled thing, that she was really offended that she was told no. But she lashes out in a way where she calls the organizers of this black-only safe space racist. So, that's where we have it. So the suggestion there is black folk cannot have their space to organize amongst themselves, their own community, to do that kind of organizing. That, again, a white supremacist system is trying to deny black folk that safe space. I mean, I try to tell my friends, I'm actually very critical of a lot of my friends are live streamers. I say that they're long-winded, but this might be rather long-winded of me, but this is an enormous issue. I've seen a lot of white progressives really focus on whatever their pet issue is, whether it be stopping the pipelines, whether it be economic justice, raising the minimum wage, so forth, so on. There's all these really important issues that the progressive movement has taken up. But I feel like many times with white progressives, they kind of roll their eyes whenever the subject of racial justice comes up, and that their own pet issues should always take priority over those people's pet issue. They might not say so in as many words, but it's clear. It's clear that, and what came out after this incident, another live streamer who's good friends with the first live streamer, who's also a white woman, who has a pretty big following, defended her friend, and both of them denied that they were being racist, that they were fully in their right of lambasting these black organizers for having the audacity to have a black-only space, and to tell this figure within the so-called progressive movement that no, she could not broadcast live from this organizing session. If you know anything about like real organizing, you don't do that. You don't get together with a group of activist organizers planning campaigns and trying to find ways to work with each other and to offer each other mutual aid and their own little different campaigns to build a mobilization. You don't broadcast that kind of planning, that level of organizing. That is not broadcast. I don't, and then to come in and then to demand that, really, and then to leave and try and lambast the organizers as racist is really beyond the pale and outrageous. But what made it even worse was this woman and her friend doubled down, basically denied that they did anything wrong, and tried to twist it back to the black organizers down in Richmond where this happened. And they just, twisted and turned in the wind and made it about themselves, and really missed a huge opportunity for not only self-critique, but for self-awareness, to make themselves more aware of these issues, and through that process help educate many of their followers. What you see if you watch their videos down in the comments section, you see a lot of very racist comments from their followers who are just irate that their leader lady, their superwoman, was told no. And you get guys in there who, I looked at some of their Facebook pages. They consider themselves very progressive, very left, but to them it's like, many of them, it was like class struggle. We can only talk about class struggle isolated in and of itself, not connected to racism, not connected even to really imperialism. For me, a lot of the underlying issues in all of our struggles is imperialism and capitalism. But along with that is sort of the other side of the coin of that is racism. Imperialism is about, especially when it comes to the U.S. empire, subjecting brown and black people to severe oppression, to systematic violence. Open up any history book and you can pretty much tell that. Even the mainstream history books, you can sort of read between the lines and see that imperialism has been built up in this country for a long time. And capitalism has been structured on the backs of largely black folk at the beginning of this country, but other immigrant groups that came in, Asian Americans, and more recently Latinos, forming the basis of the what's called the underclass, the severely working poor. And so you have obviously systematic racism in this country, which capitalism and imperialism feed off of. And like I said, capitalism and imperialism is underneath a lot of our struggles as progressives, or we'd like to call ourselves progressive. When we call ourselves progressive and yet we dismiss the concerns of marginalized folk, I don't think we're true progressives. We're not. We're part of the problem at that point. We're not recognizing the systems, the structures in place that have oppressed so many of our sisters and brothers in the struggle. And has been said many times by my friend Jacqueline Lukman of Lukman Nation, that black issues, black struggles are progressive issues and progressive struggles. They really are one and the same. And when progressives can start winning elections, it will be when they really have listened to the black voices and shown commitment to working on the black issues, that they really will start winning. I'm convinced of that as well as Latino folk, immigrant folks, refugees. All these issues are winning issues for the progressives, but they have to be very outspoken and very out front in advocating those positions that are so critically important to the marginalized communities. And if we don't uphold those, and if we're off in our own little pet issues about, pipeline this, chemtrails this, or we're the proletariat, let's fight for whatever vague abstract notion of what a class struggle might look like. If we don't deal with the racial issues that are right in front of us, we're never going to accomplish any of those other issues. We have to fight for the most marginalized, because that is what progressives do. It is. And these two women that doubled down really were in a very severe state of denial and try to spin it around and talk about reverse racism, which doesn't really exist, and totally disrespect the need for safe spaces. They're ridiculous. And again, they made it about themselves. And when you're not progressives at that point, you're not. So let me talk about safe spaces. So safe spaces are basically needed because there are marginalized communities. I think we can all agree on that. And so there is a time and place for the whole progressive movement, or so-called progressive movement, can get together and work on major mobilizations across racial, national, class boundaries. But before that work can be done, there needs to be some safe spaces, places that certain communities that are marginalized can go and vent and network and communicate and even organize amongst themselves first before larger hybrid mobilizations can really come through to fruition. There has to be some of those basic spaces created where people feel safe to speak their mind, to get together and communicate and share information with each other, because their experience is so vastly different than what us white folks have dealt with. We are come from a total position of privilege that we can't relate really to what an experience is for folks that are systematically targeted by law enforcement, are systematically discriminated against in workplaces, have a history of violent oppression against their families, to have housing denied to them, to be disrespected in many, many ways, to be humiliated in many, many ways. We as white folk don't understand that. And as progressives, and if we can't empathize, even begin to empathize, if we can't even understand why there might be a need for a safe space and just dismiss it, and as the white woman who was denied her privilege of taping this 90-minute session within a three-day conference, can flip out about it and make it this whole other issue. I forgot my train of thought there. We're not progressives if we... she did say she was asked about it and tried to sort of challenged on some of what she was saying. And her response was, I don't have time to talk about racism. I really don't have time to learn about racism. I want to go back to talking about my own little organic farming and the chemtrails and vaccine shit. But I don't have time to really learn about racism. You know, like, who the fuck is she? And why is she considered such an important person within the progressive movement? That's not acceptable. It's not. So I'm kind of wondering, the people that love her so much and hold her up on a pedestal, what is that all about? That's not progressive. So Sandy said the beginning was really interesting. Thanks, Sandy. I'm sorry if I'm boring people now. I just have to share my opinion here. It is what it is. And if we're considered progressives, then at the least we can do is realize there's a need for black-only safe spaces. For safe spaces for brown folk, safe spaces for South Asians. Safe spaces for people of the Islamic faith who are clearly being targeted within this fucked up empire right now that we call the U.S. And it broke my heart. There was a 17-year-old Muslim girl wearing hijab in Reston, walking with her friends, going to a late night service at her mosque, because it was at the end of Ramadan. And she was brutally murdered. And the police say, oh, it was most likely road rage. I mean, they're still investigating, but they're kind of like, nah, it was most likely road rage. That shit is not road rage. The guy pulled behind some office buildings, parked his car, came out and re-engaged the kids after yelling at them with a baseball bat, chased them, and abducted the one girl. I think it might have, there's some reports that there was sexual assault at that point, abducted her, and later killed her and threw her into a lake in a commercial park. But the police are like, oh, this is most likely road rage. That's not road rage. That's chasing after teenagers after parking your car with a baseball bat. And she was wearing a hijab. So, I mean, clearly they were targeted. I hear stories about Islamic families being surveilled constantly by law enforcement. So Islamic folks are entitled to have safe spaces. We as progressives should advocate for that. We should not be dismissing it, and we certainly shouldn't be putting our narcissism first and saying, oh no, you must let me fucking videotape your organizing, what you're communicating within your community. I must come in as an outsider and govern the way you have your safe space. That's fucking bullshit. I'm sorry I'm getting irate now because it's bullshit. And I'm sorry. If we can't see that as a necessary for their own health, for allies in what could be the coming People's Popular Uprising, as comrades that we want to work with, we need to support that period, end of story. So I hope you're understanding why folks need safe space. It has a lot to do with empathy and understanding the history of this fucking empire and what it has done to millions and millions of folks that don't have white skin. If we don't realize that, fuck it. Okay, fuck it, I'm out. So be careful if you call yourself a progressive. There's some responsibilities to that. And that also, you know, as a progressive, maybe you should consider getting more substance into your live streams about pertinent issues, not about your own self-aggrandizement, your own inflated ego, and obsessing about how many fucking clicks you're going to get on your video. Okay? Really, let's try and not make it all about ourselves as live streamers, okay? It's not about you. There are some serious issues that need to be dealt, and there's a learning opportunity right now with what's happened. Okay, so shame on these folks. Shame on Claudia. Shame on Debbie. They're wrong. And they're in denial. And they largely made it all about themselves. So let's move on. Let's move on. Let folks that need safe spaces. Advocate for that. They're your comrades. That's the least you can do. Okay? So this is going to be part 1. I'm going to have, I don't know how many more parts. I'm going to try and break them up because I don't like to be super long-winded. But let me just summarize to say there's a great history in progressivism of communities of color organizing, coming together, and accomplishing so much just within their own community. We should recognize that. Where we can be allies, or what is popularly being called accomplices now. But we should always support them. They're our comrades, first and foremost. Okay? So this is just going to be part 1. Like I said, I'm going to kind of break it up. We're going to have other parts. I'm probably going to try and go into history a little bit, and a little bit more about really what it does mean to be a good white accomplice. I love all you guys. Jed, why are you talking about Hillary? Hillary calls herself a progressive DWS also. These days you are either leftist or leftish. I don't know what leftish is. It reminds me of lutefisk. I don't know, or lefse. We're both Norwegian. One's a dessert, one's a nasty ass tasting fish. Okay, you're either left or you're not left, in my opinion, but whatever. And I'm not talking about Hillary. I'm not talking about fucking elections. In most of my live streams, I'm not going to talk about elections because I'm an activist. I'm more concerned about what I do the other 364 days of the year. What I'm trying to do here is talk about a very serious issue that a lot of progressives, a lot of white progressives, I'm going to say, are in denial of, which is their own racism and their own privileges within a white supremacist system. So thank you for tuning in, and there'll be several more parts on this series. Okay, thank you. Good night.